My name is Jack. I'm 31 years old. Just a week ago, I bought the house I had dreamed of since my college days. It's not a mansion, but it's mine. A beautiful $750,000 two-story with a porch swing, a backyard big enough for cookouts, and the kind of kitchen where you can easily picture a family gathered on Sundays. I'd been saving nearly 10 years, skipping trips, living in a small apartment while friends upgraded, and driving my old car until it was on its last legs. This house was more than property. It was proof that every sacrifice had been worth it. When I got the keys, I spent 3 days straight cleaning, unpacking, and setting everything in place. The living room had fresh flowers. My new dining table was set with matching plates and silverware. I even made name cards for each guest. I invited my parents, my younger brother, cousins, and a few close family friends for what I thought would be a simple but meaningful housewarming dinner. For me, it was the perfect chance to bring everyone together, share a meal, and maybe feel like a family again. The night came, and I was buzzing with nervous excitement. I kept checking the roast, straightening chairs, and adjusting the music volume. At 6, I poured myself a glass of wine and waited. By 6:30, no one. By 7, the food cooled. Candles burned low, and the silence of the house felt heavy. By 8, it was obvious. No one was coming. I sat at the table, surrounded by empty plates, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator. Then my phone rang. It was Dad. For a moment, I felt relief. Maybe they were late. Maybe there was a reason. But his voice was casual, almost detached. "Hey, Jack," he said, as if calling for no real reason. "Your brother thinks the house should be his. Since he's planning to settle down soon, it makes more sense." I froze. "What do you mean should be his?" I asked, my voice cracking. Dad sighed like I was being difficult. "Well, he's starting a family soon, and you'll probably live here alone. Wouldn't it be better for everyone if you sold it to him or just let him take over the mortgage?" The glass of wine in my hand suddenly had no taste. My chest tightened, my face burned. They hadn't just skipped my dinner. They ignored me on purpose. And now they were telling me the house I worked for wasn't really mine in their eyes. I sat in the dim light, Dad's words echoing long after the call ended. The food I had cooked filled the air with a sour smell. But I couldn't move. It wasn't only that they hadn't come, it was the casual way he said it. Like my years of saving and sacrifice didn't count. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed years of small moments where I had been overlooked. When my brother Mark needed money for a car, my parents co-signed. When he quit his job, they let him stay at home rent-free. When I earned a big promotion last year, no call of congratulations, just a text from Mom. "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Mark got a new girlfriend?" The next day, I called Mom. I didn't want to argue. I just wanted answers. "Why didn't anyone come last night? I had food for everyone. You could have at least texted." Her tone was dismissive. "Oh, Jack, we were tired. Your dad worked late, and Mark had plans with his girlfriend. You know how busy everyone is. Besides, you don't need us to celebrate. You've got your house now." "It wasn't about the house," I said carefully. "I wanted to spend time together." There was a pause, then her voice softened in that familiar way she used when she wanted me to let something go. "Honey, you're overthinking it. We'll stop by one weekend. Maybe you can cook again then." Oh, and about what your father said, you should think about it. Mark's under pressure and you're single. It would mean so much if you helped him get started. Those words hit me hard. I had already spent years getting myself started. Long nights, cheap meals, sacrifices. Now that I had achieved something, they wanted me to give it away. I ended the call quickly before my frustration showed. But over the next few days, the pressure only grew. Mark texted me, "Hey man, Dad said he talked to you. You should think about selling. That house is too big for you anyway, right? You could move back into your apartment and save money." I stared at the message, stunned by the entitlement. Like my home was just holding his place until he was ready. I didn't reply. A few days later, my parents showed up unannounced. I wasn't home, but when I returned, their car was in the driveway and the front door unlocked. Inside, Mom walked room to room, smiling faintly, while Dad stood in the kitchen, nodding like he was inspecting property. "Jack," Mom said cheerfully, "we were just stopping by. This place really is perfect for Mark and his future family. Don't you think the nursery would fit beautifully right here?" She pointed at the room I had turned into my office. I stood there, speechless. "This is my office," I said quietly. Dad looked at me like I hadn't spoken. "You've done well here, son. It's a good starter home, but you'll want something bigger when you meet someone. By then, Mark will already be settled here. It's only logical." My jaw tightened. "I'm not selling my house," I said, firmer. Mom's smile faltered. "You don't have to be selfish. We're just thinking about the family's future." Selfish. The word hung in the air long after they left. I spent the rest of the night pacing the living room, trying to calm down. The feeling that this wasn't over nagged at me. This felt like the start of something much bigger. Over the next week, the favoritism was impossible to ignore. Every call turned into a conversation about Mark. When I mentioned a new project at work, Mom immediately asked whether my house would be easy to childproof once Mark moved in. When I asked Dad about a small plumbing problem, he laughed and said, "Good practice for maintaining the place for Mark." Then came the family dinner, my first since moving. I went hoping we could clear the air. Instead, the night felt like an ambush. My aunt asked when I was handing over the keys. My cousin joked that I was the family landlord. Mark sat there with a smirk, barely hidden. "Come on, Jack," he said, raising his glass. "You know this is the right thing. You don't even like having people over. What's the point of a—" Instead, I swallowed it, forcing a tight smile while my stomach churned. That night, the house stopped feeling like a haven and started feeling like a target. I sat on the couch long after midnight, staring at the blank TV, realizing that if I didn't draw a line soon, they'd keep pushing until I had nothing left. 2 days later, I got a text from Mom. "Jack, we're bringing Mark by this weekend so he can take some measurements for furniture. Make sure you're home." My hands went cold. Measurements for furniture. They were acting like the decision was already made, like I was a guest in my own home. I didn't reply. I put the phone face down and walked out to the porch to clear my head. The evening air was cool, but my chest was tight with anger. They weren't hinting anymore. They were making plans for my home without me. By Friday, I still hadn't answered. I even thought about leaving town just to avoid the visit. By Friday, I still hadn't answered. I even thought about leaving town just to avoid the visit. Saturday morning, a car door slammed in my driveway. I looked out and froze. Mom, Dad, and Mark were standing by their car. Mark had a clipboard, Dad a tape measure. They were walking up the steps. I opened the door before they could knock. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Mom smiled as if this were normal. "We told you we were coming by, honey." Mark just needs a few quick measurements so he can plan the furniture layout. My jaw clenched. There is no furniture layout. He's not moving in. Dad frowned. Jack, stop making this harder than it has to be. You know this is what's best for everyone. Before I could answer, Mark stepped past me into the house as if he owned it. Living room's a little small for the sectional I wanted, but we can make it work, he said casually, pulling out the tape measure. Something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, low in chest. Mark looked up, smirking. Come on, man, you're being dramatic. Out, I repeated, louder. Mom gasped like I'd cursed. Jack, you're overreacting, I said out, I shouted louder than I meant to. My voice echoed through the house. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Mark rolled his eyes, put the tape measure away, and brushed past me toward the door. Fine, he said, but this isn't over. They left. The silence they left felt deafening. I stood in the living room, hands shaking, heart pounding. This was no longer a disagreement. This felt like war. I thought my outburst would make them back off. I was wrong. The next week, I came home to a sold sign propped against my door. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the sign and called my parents immediately. Why is there a sold sign on my porch? I demanded. Oh, Mom said lightly. Mark's friend works in real estate. He had one lying around and thought it would be funny. A joke, she said. A hint, she insisted. I could feel my pulse in my ears. That's not a hint. That's harassment. Don't be so sensitive, Mom said. We're just trying to make this easier for you. You'll feel so much better once you let this go. Let it go like the house was just some trinket you were stubbornly clinging to. 2 days later, it escalated. I pulled into my driveway and found Mark and Dad talking to a man in a suit. I stepped out. Who is this? I asked. The man extended his hand. I'm with L&M Realty. I'm here to do a quick appraisal. I stared at him, then at my dad. An appraisal? Who asked for an appraisal? Dad crossed his arms. We did. You need to know what the place is worth so you can make a fair deal with Mark. No one's trying to cheat you. I laughed, a bitter sound. You had no right to bring someone here without my permission. Leave. The appraiser looked uncomfortable and left quickly. Mark shot me an annoyed look. You're being ridiculous, he muttered. As they drove off. That night, I called Mom, hoping for an apology. Instead, she said, Jack, we've been talking. If you won't sell, you can at least let Mark stay part-time until he finds his own place. It's only fair. I tightened my grip on the phone. No, I said flat. Jack, don't be difficult, she said. Mark and his girlfriend are coming by this weekend with some of their things. Just be gracious, okay? I couldn't answer. My throat was tight, my heart pounding. They weren't just ignoring me. They were planning to move him in without my consent. After that last call, something shifted. I stopped answering. I let every text and voicemail go straight to my inbox. I needed time and space, but quiet didn't stop them. That weekend, a car pulled in with boxes. Mark's girlfriend and Mark had the trunk open. I stepped outside before they could unload. Turn around, I said, calm but cold. Mark raised an eyebrow. We're just dropping some things off. I don't care what Mom said, I interrupted. You are not moving anything into this house. His girlfriend crossed her arms. Why are you being so stubborn? You don't even have a roommate. This place is huge. You could use the company. The audacity nearly made me laugh. This is my home, I said slowly. You are not moving in. Mark slammed the trunk and muttered, "You're going to regret this," as he left. I stood in the driveway long after they drove away, feeling a lead blanket of exhaustion settle over me. This wasn't just a fight. It was my family trying to take away the one thing I'd worked for. The following week was one of the worst of my life. I couldn't focus at work. Mom's voice called me selfish. Dad's urged me to do the right thing. Every buzz of my phone made my stomach knot. Afraid I'd find them on my porch or inside my house. I stopped inviting friends over. I stopped cooking in the kitchen I'd once loved. The house felt less like home and more like a temporary hold, waiting for someone to push me out. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. I got home late and found a note taped to the front door in Mom's handwriting. "Jack, we brought Mark by again today to look at the upstairs bathroom. He thinks it will work fine once you clear out your things. Please be reasonable. We love you. Clear out your things." My hand shook. I tore the note down and stood on the porch, rain soaking my shirt, heart hammering. Inside, drenched and shaking, I sat on the living room floor, staring at the paper. For the first time, I considered giving up. Sell the house, take the money, disappear. It would be easier than this constant battle. I thought about everything I'd sacrificed to get here. Late nights, missed birthdays, promotions I fought for. For what? To be treated like a placeholder? I didn't cry, but a heaviness settled in my chest. For days, I moved through the house like a ghost, barely eating, barely speaking. Then one night I found myself in my office, staring at a framed certificate from my company, recognizing my leadership. From the year I got my biggest promotion, the year my parents forgot to call. It hit me. They didn't care because they didn't have to. I had spent years trying to earn their approval. The responsible son. The one who never asked for help, who did everything right. And what did that earn me? A family that thought they could take what they wanted. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. For the first time in weeks, I felt focused. I started researching property law, tenants' rights, home security, legal steps for trespassing. I looked up everything about setting boundaries, legally, financially, and emotionally. The next day, I called a locksmith and changed every lock. I installed a camera at the front door. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't answer when they called that night. That weekend, I quietly moved valuables, family jewelry, and important documents into a safe deposit box. Almost predictably, the next escalation came. My mailbox was stuffed with real estate flyers, each with a handwritten note. "Ready to sell? Call us today." I knew where they came from. I sat on my porch steps with the stack in my lap and felt something other than dread for the first time in weeks. It wasn't anger. It was something sharper and cleaner. If they wanted a fight, I thought, I'd give them one. But this time, I wouldn't just defend myself. This time, I'd make sure they regretted ever thinking they could take my home. Something changed in me that day on the porch. I spent weeks feeling powerless, waiting for the next blow. Waiting for my family to make their move. For the first time since buying the house, though, I felt in control, even if they didn't know it yet. I began small. First, I took care of myself. I re-established a routine, waking up early, cooking real breakfasts instead of skipping meals, and taking time to clean and enjoy my home. I even invited a coworker over for dinner one evening, sitting across from someone who genuinely admired the place, saying things like, "Wow, this is incredible, Jack. You must be proud." felt like fresh air. For those hours, I could forget that my own family was trying to push me out. Then I focused on work. For weeks, I'd been distracted and half-present, running on fumes. Channeling that frustration into my job changed everything. I stayed late because I wanted to, not because I had to. I volunteered for a project nobody else wanted, a high-pressure account that had scared off 2 other managers, and within a month, I landed one of the biggest deals of the quarter. That one win shifted things. My boss congratulated me publicly at a team meeting, and my name went out in an all-company email praising my leadership and client strategy. A week later, HR offered me a significant raise and a bonus. Standing in my kitchen that night, I let the number sink in. It wasn't only money, it was leverage, it was freedom. With the bonus, I made a few upgrades. I hired a landscaper, new grass, a clean stone walkway, solar lights up to the porch. It wasn't just to make the place prettier, it was a statement. This house is thriving, and so am I. Then I called a security company and had a full system installed. Cameras on every entrance, motion sensors, a monitored alarm. I wanted to be able to see, from anywhere, who stepped onto my property. I began documenting everything. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting, I was preparing. Around that time, my parents invited me to dinner. The old me would have gone, hoping to smooth things over. This version of me politely declined. "I've been busy with work," I said, and left it at that. A week later, Mark texted, "You've been quiet. Ready to talk about the house yet?" Instead of ignoring him, I replied, "No, just that one word." For the first time, I felt no guilt. As weeks passed, I noticed their pressure losing steam. Calls came less often. Texts were shorter, curt even. It seemed they were regrouping, trying to figure out their next move. But while they plotted, I built. I met a lawyer a friend recommended and spent 2 hours going over my situation. She laid out my rights plainly. They had no legal claim to my property. "You are under no obligation to sell, rent, or share this home," she told me. If they tried to move someone in without consent, I could have them removed. Hearing that was a weightless. I left with documents, highlighted legal options, and the lawyer's card. By the end of the month, I did something that made me smile every time I thought about it. I met a financial advisor and moved the house title into a trust under my name, making it legally untouchable without my consent. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I kept working on myself. I joined a gym near the office, started lifting weights, and ran a few miles after work. Each day I felt a little stronger and a little more like the person I had been before all this, but sharper and more focused. One Friday evening, as the sun set, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine and watched the security feed on my phone. For the first time, I wasn't dreading a car pulling in. I was waiting for it. If they showed up again, I was ready. The next weeks were unnervingly quiet. No calls from Mom, no surprise visits, not even a sarcastic text from Mark. At first, then I got an email from my lawyer. "Please call me as soon as possible. Someone attempted to pull your property records today." My stomach turned. When I called, she confirmed my suspicion. Someone had tried to get a copy of my deed through the county clerk's office. "Property records are technically public, but they may be looking for a weakness," she said. "With the trust in place, you're protected. Still, document this. It shows intent." That night, I flipped through the folder she'd given me weeks earlier and realized I wasn't scared anymore. If anything, I was motivated. This was no longer just about keeping my house. It was about making sure they never tried this with me or anyone else. I remembered a call from a family friend at a local bank a few months earlier. My parents had co-signed Mark's car loan, and he'd missed several payments, close to defaulting. At the time, I'd brushed it off. Now it was information. I called my friend back, asked hypothetically about repossession timelines, and by the end of the conversation, I had a clear picture of Mark's precarious finances. The irony made me laugh. They'd been so focused on my house, they hadn't watched their own finances. Armed with that, I made a plan. Step 1. Secure complete control over my property, legally and practically. I met my lawyer again to review scenarios: trespassing, unauthorized occupation, harassment, and together we drafted a formal no trespass notice on legal letterhead, ready to be delivered if they crossed the line. Step 2. Strengthen my position financially. I opened a separate bank account for house expenses, mortgage, utilities, maintenance, under the trust's name, so there could be no argument about shared family money. Step 3. Psychological. I wanted them to know I wasn't afraid, but I didn't want to show my hand. So I started small. When Mom texted, "Hope you're doing well." "We'd like to stop by soon," I replied. "Please schedule any visits in writing with at least 48 hours notice. Unannounced visits will not be allowed." It was a simple line that sent a message. She didn't reply for 2 days, and when she did, it was, "That's not very family-like, Jack." I smiled at my phone and told myself, no, it's boundaries. With the legal groundwork in place, I began gathering information. I followed Mark's social media closely, noting patterns. Fancy dinners, weekend trips, while his car was apparently on the brink of repossession. I took screenshots. One night, I found a post with a photo taken inside my house the same day. Checking my security feed, I felt my stomach drop. Earlier that afternoon, Mark had walked to my front door, tried the handle, and then cupped his hands to peer inside. He hadn't broken in, but he had been there watching. I saved the footage, labeled it, and emailed it to myself for a timestamp. Then I texted my lawyer. "Got something you'll want to see." Her reply the next morning, "This is good." With every step I felt stronger. No more reacting, no more waiting. I was lining things up like dominoes, gathering what I needed and waiting for the right moment to tip the first one. The final piece came unexpectedly. My company announced the project I led was being extended and they needed someone to run the next phase with a bigger budget and team. When my boss offered me the position, I didn't hesitate. It was a promotion and a power move. The raise would help me pay down the mortgage early. The title gave me credibility my family couldn't ignore. That weekend, I sat with a new folder: legal letters, financial documents, camera footage, screenshots. I realized I had everything. They had tried to make me feel small. Now, I held the cards. I didn't rush. Patience had been the lesson. My family expected me to break and hand over the house, but I was past defending only my home. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. The opportunity came on a Saturday morning via a group text from Mom. "Family dinner at our place tonight. Be there at 7. Normally, I might have ignored it, but this time I saw my chance. I took my folder, printed photos from the security camera, and had my lawyer prepare a cease and desist notice regarding harassment and trespassing. At my parents' house, Mark's car was in the driveway, and the dining room smelled of roast chicken. The atmosphere was tense. Mom greeted me oddly. "Jack, good you came." Mark didn't look up. Finally, We can talk about this like adults. I set my folder on the table and said calmly, "You're right. It's time we talk." Dad told me they'd been patient, and it was time to think about the family. "Mark and Jenna need a place to start," he said. I didn't raise my voice. I slid a paper across the table. "The deed to my house. Legally, it's now in a trust under my name. No one can transfer ownership without going through the trust process. You can stop trying to get a copy. It's not going anywhere." Mom blinked. "What do you mean, stop trying?" I then slid over the email from my lawyer about the attempted property record pull. "I know someone tried to access my records last month. Don't bother denying it." Dad protested they'd only wanted to know the value and accused them of trying to bring an appraiser onto my property without permission. I slid a photo of the day I caught them in my driveway. "That's trespassing. If it happens again, I will press charges." Mark scoffed. "You wouldn't do that. We're family." I smiled, not warmly. "You thought being family meant you could walk all over me. It doesn't." I handed over the cease and desist letter drafted by my attorney. Mom picked it up shaking. "Jack, this is extreme." "No," I said steadily, "this is reasonable." "Extreme." Apparently, I told them, was showing up with moving boxes, trying to move someone into my home without asking, leaving notes telling me to clear out. Mark called me dramatic. I laid out printed screenshots, his social posts, the doorbell footage of him peeking, and the summary from my friend at the bank about missed payments. "This is the last time you come near my property without permission," I said quietly. "If you do, I will give this file to my lawyer, and she will handle the consequences, including financial ones." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom whispered, "You've changed, Jack." I stood, gathered my folder, and said, "Yes, being the quiet, responsible son made it easier for you to take advantage. That ends now." As I walked out, I added, "I'm not selling. I'm not sharing. If any of you step foot on my property again without permission, the police will be the first to know." I left them with cold, untouched dinner. My follow-through mattered. I posted no trespassing signs on the property line, filed copies of the cease and desist with the local police, and sent a formal letter to my parents documenting that future communication about my house must go through my lawyer. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. Then Mark texted, "You didn't have to humiliate us like that." I typed back, "You did that yourselves." For the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. But my plan wasn't only about peace. It was about preventing this from happening again. I paid several months ahead on the mortgage and automated payments from the trust account. The house was locked down financially and legally. No one could touch it but me. Then, to rub it in a little, I threw a real housewarming party. Coworkers, friends, neighbors, people who supported me. The house filled with laughter, music, and good food. I posted photos of everyone around the dining table, smiling and raising glasses. I didn't tag my family, but I knew they'd see. By morning, I had missed calls from Mom and Dad and a long, rambling text from Mark accusing me of tearing the family apart. I didn't reply for days. The messages kept coming. Guilt from Mom, logic from Dad, anger from Mark. The one that showed I'd hit a nerve was a text saying they'd gone to the police and been told they couldn't be stopped from visiting because they were family. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Within 24 hours, she sent them a certified letter explaining trespassing consequences and included the security footage of Mark peeking. 2 days later, Dad messaged, "Fine, have it your way. Don't expect us to come around anymore." I smiled reading that. The real fallout came quietly. A few weeks after the party, I saw Mark's car being towed from my parents' driveway. Maybe coincidence, maybe bad timing, but he had been behind on payments. Later, a neighbor sent a picture of a social post. Mark ranting about people who think they're better because they have money and complaining everything was falling apart. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My silence said enough. Weeks turned into months. The calls stopped. No more notes on my door. No surprise visits. The house felt light and warm again. I kept building my life, hosting dinners, turning my office into a space I loved, planting flowers. Every small improvement felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd almost lost. Nearly 6 months later, one quiet evening on the porch swing, I saw my parents' car slow in front of the house. My chest tightened, but they idled on the street and then drove away. I didn't wave or call after them. I just rocked gently, watched the sun set, and for the first time since this began, felt completely at peace. This house wasn't just a building anymore. It was a boundary I had drawn and defended. Sitting in the golden light, I finished the last sip of wine, set the glass on the railing, and said out loud, "This is my home, and it always will be." Then I went inside and locked the door behind me, not from fear, but by choice.